So I want to show you a neat little tool inside a DAW which can be used for programming loops and beats, mostly, but also for chordal or melody instruments if you want so. I will be showing it here inside of Cubase, but I guess it is available in most DAWs nowadays. They probably look a little different in another DAW, but in Cubase it looks like this, and it's called a beat designer. So a beat designer is a looper function for a VST instrument. So you would create a instrument track or a MIDI track which is routed to a instrument track, and for that you go to the MIDI insert effects, and here you choose beat designer. So then if you click on the edit button, a beat designer instance shows up. Well, it will probably show up like this, and you can see there is a whole lot of functions which I will explain in a moment. What beat designer basically does is, here on the left you have the same information as if you would use your piano roll. If you are programming MIDI information, you would have a piano roll over here, and it will say key C3 and D3, E3, and so on. The same information you will find in Beat Designer over here. So these are your keys, or in this case, your instruments. If you load up an instance of Beat Designer, it will automatically say, well, probably you wanna program a beat or percussion loop. So it says bass drum, snare drum, hand claps, and so on. But you see, behind this in brackets, it always says C1, D1, D sharp 1, and so on. So it is basically possible as well to program chords and melody inside the Beat Designer. So what Beat Designer now does is, I now have inserted it here on my drum track, and as soon as I start my playback, Beat Designer will start to play this loop, which you can see here in the main window. Now you can hear nothing because nothing is going on, but as soon as I click here, inside this pattern window, every color that I produce, so these little squares with colors, every square that I produce will create a sound for this instrument that you can read here on the left. So right now, this pattern here is 1 bar long. And if I start my playback, for every bar, Beat Designer will play this loop, which is a bar long. So that's basically it. There is a lot of other functions inside Beat Designer, which I will go through right now. Here in the top left corner, you have a drop-down menu with different functions, which are mainly functions for your steps, functions for copying, copy, paste, and delete, and additional functions. You have a field over here where you can say how many steps your Beat Designer is supposed to have. So right now I have 5, and my pattern will be 5 steps long. You can go up to 64, and then you can create 64 different beats in one loop. So this is interesting if you want to create uneven numbers, or if you say maybe I think the default will be 16th, and here it will load a 16th time feel. So if you have a 16th or 8th or 4 note time feel, 16 steps would make kind of sense. But if you go, for example, for triplets, then 16 steps don't make so much sense anymore, because you see you have 3, 3, 3 again and again, and then there's one left. So you would probably go for 15 or something like that. Then you have here the possibility to load or save presets. And you have a jump mode and a jump now mode, which I will explain later. On the left, you can see your instruments, and if you click here inside, you can choose any of the instruments given or different pitches for your notes. You have a tiny speaker button here in the beginning, where you can pre-listen the sounds that you've loaded. You have a mute and a solo button for every instrument that is available here. And if you hover over here, you see your mouse changes between two different modes. The one mode is you click in the drop down and you can select your instruments. And the other mode is mainly you can drag the instrument somewhere else if you want to, but you can also, and I will show that in a moment, use this function for copying patterns from one lane to another. Here down on the left, you have 3 buttons for your flams. You can, if you create a sound and you hover down to the button, you can see 3 little dots appear. And if you click 1, 2, or 3, it will create a flam on this sound. And here down, you have also 3 sliders, horizontal and 3 vertical. And these will change the position of flam 1, 2, or 3, and also the level, so the volume of flam 1, 2, or 3. On the right, you have a few more functions. You have a plus and a minus, which can create additional instruments or delete. So right now I have a long whistle here. If I want to delete it, I click minus. And if I want to create another instrument, I click on plus and add another instrument. The slider here on the right will give you the possibility to drag your instrument in time to the front or to the back, so it sounds not right on the beat, but ahead of it or after, like a laid back feeling. And here is 2 more buttons, 1 line or 2 lines or none of it. And that correlates with the swing feel you can produce down here. So if you click on 1, then this slider will be active for this instrument. And this is a swing mode, which you can produce before the beat, then you will get a negative number, or after the beat and it will be a positive number. You can produce 2 different swing fields, 1 and 2, and you can activate the swing field for this instrument, either swing field 1 or swing field 2 or none of these. The last thing you can do, you see down here you have a little piano part and 4 numbers. The numbers are the banks where you can load and save presets. And the keys give you the possibility to create a single pattern for each key. So that means you would have a pattern here and a different pattern here and a different here and so on. That makes for bank number 4 12 different patterns and 12 patterns for bank number 3, 12 for 2 and 12 different patterns for bank number 1. You see, I loaded a preset and it indicates with this little dot here, it indicates that there are already some pattern created. The dots mean there is a pattern stored on this key. So if I go to bank number 1 and click on any of the keys, you can see different patterns appear. So what you could do if you have no idea what to do or what you want or how to start, you just would go here to preset, load a preset, and you choose any of these and it will already be in time. So you choose the tempo that you want, and if you click start, Beat Designer will automatically play the right pattern in the tempo that you choose, like so. There's bass drum and snare and some of the other things as well, but not all of them are correct. So the long whistle is probably not a long whistle, and the high bongo and the electric snare are probably also not right. So it depends on the instrument that you load. If the sounds are correct, you probably have to rename them or change here or delete or load another one if you want so. So right now I want to show you how you can create your own patterns. Like I said, it's really easy. You just click anywhere and it will create the sounds that you put in. But before you can do this, you should know some things. For example, if you click anywhere, you see squares appear where I clicked, but they do not all have the same color. Different color means they are not the same volume, and the darker the color, the lower the volume, and vice versa. So here in this square, it depends if you click really low or in the middle or up high, and you see it creates different colors. Really low means dark color, means soft, and high means brighter color, means louder. You can think about this like from the beginning, or you could go like, well, I click just anywhere and afterwards I hover over the square, click and drag up and down, and you can see it changes the color, and also the number says the velocity from 1 to 127, whereas 1 is the softest and 127 is the loudest. You can do this for every square if you want to, but you could also click and drag, and now I have all the same velocity. if I want to change all of these, I just click the first one and drag up and down, and then I go to the right, and now you see I can change all of these at once. Don't forget to click and drag up and down, then you can change the velocity. If you just click and draw to the right, you undraw your notes. So click and drag draws a row of notes, and click and draw again undraws these notes or deletes these. This only works if you start over one of these. If you draw a line of notes and you start here in the beginning and draw over these, nothing happens. You just get more notes. But if you click on one of the notes and you drag to the left or right over these, they will disappear. Another thing you can do is, if you draw some notes and you hold down Shift, you can move these around. If you have a pattern and you want to create a counterpart for this pattern, there is a neat trick. For example, I go here, and if my mouse changes to a hand, I click Alt and drag this pattern somewhere else. Now watch this. If I click and drag with my Alt or Option key pressed, it will create a counterpart, so that means where I had notes before, there are none, and where I didn't have notes, there are notes. This can be super helpful if you want to create parts that work together as one, or if you have to draw a lot of notes, then you could go like, well, I will be dragging this part somewhere else, and then I just have to click some of these out, and I already have a part that fits with the first one. Now, if I want to have all the other notes from this one, I would just drag it somewhere else. I hit my Alt key and draw over these, and you see I have a counterpart to the one before. So now they are all the same velocity. So I would probably make these a little softer for all of these. And these maybe a little louder for all of these. And therefore I will create some musical information, which is very important for beats and loops in general. There is another really cool trick if you want to create interesting velocity parts. You go over here and drag up and down to the right, and now you see what happens is I have loud ones here and soft ones here. So I created a decrescendo because I held down my Alt or Option key. In this way, I can create over a lot of notes a ascending or descending velocity. So one more thing you can do is, I already told it in the beginning, you can copy patterns like so. You go to a new and empty place and paste your pattern. Now you can do slight changes with this one. And create a new pattern like this. if you now play your tune, you can change the patterns while you play the tune. And this is also possible to do live. So if you have a MIDI keyboard, you can assign these keys to your MIDI keyboard and change the patterns while you play back the music. One more thing you can do is to move the patterns around. So if you created a pattern like I just did, which is very standard, it will probably sound a little more interesting if you just move it to another place. So you can move it to the left or right, and that will probably create a way more interesting pattern out of a boring one.